I haven't done one of these in a while, but I've been thinking about what I would talk about for this one. And it made me think about my dad and your mom's dad, and how, like me, that you'll never really get to know your grandfathers. So for my dad, it's been 2.5 years since I talked to him, something like that. It was like November 2 years ago when my grandma died, when his mom died. And like, he knows about you, but I still haven't told him that he has a grandson, and Finn's 3.5 years old now. So, but because of that, you'll never get to know him. And your mom's dad is kind of just standoffish and stuff, and that makes me think of my grandfathers. So I'll start with my mom's, well, you could say dad's. So sometime way before I was born, my mom and her real dad, or my grandma and grandpa, my mom's real parents, split up. And so then her dad was named Cletus. He started a new family and everything. And then my grandma started a new family with her new husband, Lester. So if we're going off of Grandpa Cletus, I distinctly remember meeting him one time when I was younger. He drove a semi-truck. I remember him coming to the house, and we looked at his truck. And then they lived in the town that we lived in for a little bit, and they would babysit us every once in a while. And I only ever remember seeing him or meeting him like once more, and that was before I joined the Army. My brother Jeff, for different reasons, has always been trying to figure out where he fits in, especially after he found out that my dad isn't his dad. But he tried reaching out to them, to Grandpa Cletus, and they lived a little bit away from where we lived at the time. And he asked me if I wanted to go meet him. And I was like, sure, why not? So I went over there with him. And I pretty much got the distinction that we really wanted there. And that was the last time that I ever saw him. So in 2005, I was in Iraq. And I think I got a Red Cross message. I can't quite remember. But saying that he died. And I want to say it was a heart attack, but I don't remember. And I remember my mom trying to get me to come home for the funeral, but since it was, during a wartime and he didn't raise me, then I had to stay there, which, to be honest, it's going to sound bad, but it really didn't bother me. If I got to go home, that was cool. If not, I really didn't care because I never knew the man, which is, a sad thing to say. And so that was, like I said, sometime in 2004, 2005, somewhere around there. All I remember is it had to be 2004 because I was in Iraq. And then Grandpa Lester, which is my mom's stepdad, I remember him being around more, but it was almost like both of her families, my mom's grandparents, or my mom's parents, it's almost like when they got the divorce and started the new families, it's like the family that they had together didn't exist. And so my mom and my Uncle Greg have kind of always been in this limbo in between, and us as grandkids were kind of in that same thing where it was like they knew we existed, but no one really cared. I remember one time I went home for vacation, and my grandparents lived right down the street from my mom. And mom was like, hey, grandma would really like to see you. And I was just tired, because when you live far away and you go someplace, some people always want you to just go and run and all this stuff. And I was like, listen, they live right down the street. If they want to see me, the road goes both ways. They could come here. And my mom got mad about that. And I was just like, I really didn't care. Because I felt like if they wanted to see me, they could put in the effort to drive 2 minutes down the road when I've done put in like 8.5, 9.5 hours to get there. So what was it? My dad's mom, we called her Nanny, and Grandpa Lester died with a couple months in between each other, something like that. I'm horrible with dates. But I went to the funeral and it was the same way. I always felt like he didn't care for us being around, so it sounds bad, but it never really bothered me, and it still doesn't to this day. Just because, like I said, if you cared, you'd put forth the effort to show. And then if you're going the other side, for my dad, I knew my grandpa on his side a little bit more. His name was Harold, and everybody called him Tiny because I don't know how tall he was. He was probably somewhere between like 5'9" and 6 foot. I don't really know. And he was about 350 pounds when he died. So, but everybody called him Tiny. And so, what I always remember is he always wanted to be a country music singer. And so he had his little band, and he would go around town, and he would play all these little gigs in town. And one time he went to Nashville for this like Star Search thing, and he played there and all this stuff like that. And he would always play solitaire at the table. So if he was doing anything at the house, normally he had a deck of cards and he'd be sitting there playing solitaire at the kitchen table. But when we were younger, sometimes he would take us to all these different places like the VFW or different places like that, and never really thought of it. And like, I learned something later on that kind of changed my opinion of it, because he never worked and he just always seemed lazy and all this stuff to me. And it's like he had no drive in life other than just going to the bars and playing his music and stuff like that. And so in 2010, I switched from being a tanker to being signal. And when I got my orders from school, they said I was going to Korea. And so I was actually talking to my dad at that point, and I called him and talked to him, and I talked to my grandma for a minute. And then she goes, "Oh, you're going to Korea?" I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Did you know your grandpa Tiny was in the Korean War?" And I was like, how have I never heard about this? At this point in time, I had been in the Army for about 10 years or so. Never heard anything about this. And she was like, yeah. She was like, something about he was drafted, and that was right around the time that they first got married. And I think my Aunt Mary was just born, or my grandma was still pregnant with her, and so there's all these worries about, him going over there. And she's like, yeah, he was a Marine. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah. And then she goes, he got a Purple Heart. And I'm like, what is going on? How did I never hear about any of this? And it was something about a mortar landed, and somehow he got some of the shrapnel in his leg, and I think she said he pushed some guys out of the way or something, but regardless, he got a Purple Heart in the Korean War. And I didn't find out about this until I was like, I don't know, this had to be late 20s, almost early 30s, something like that. And so, he never talked about it, he never brought it up, anything like that, but that was a different generation. But after being the places that I've been and seeing the stuff that I've seen, I wonder if he was still alive, if I would be able to talk to him about this, because he passed away, oh God, I don't even know. I think I was like 14, 15 when he passed away, so this was well before I knew any of this. But it kind of changed my opinion of him, because I could see why he acted the way that he did after that, after all the stuff that I've been through, because, you know, everything like that you go through, like I said, I went to Kosovo, and then I went to Iraq twice, and all this, and all that stuff, eventually it affects you, and it changes who you are. And sometimes there's just, you can push some of it back sometimes, but it still permanently changes you deep down in ways. And like I said, so I just almost wish now that I could talk to him. And who knows, maybe he would talk to me, maybe he wouldn't, but I wonder if that would have changed stuff with me going to war, if he would have talked to me. But like I said, you never know, because when we were kids, he hardly talked about anything, about the only big thing. And so, well, I was talking about like the VFWs and stuff. When we were kids, we didn't think nothing about it, because, you know, it was just Grandpa Tiny. He was going to play music. Everybody knew him. When he would take us there, and they would give us like a bowl of chips or a bowl of peanuts or something like that, and then they would give us a soda, and we thought it was just so cool. And then they would talk to him, and they would ask us how we were doing. And it never quite clicked, because, you know, he'd play music and stuff there. And it was kind of funny, around that same time, we all were there talking with some of my cousins and all that stuff, and they were the same way. They were like, we never knew. And then, you know, and then they would talk about going to the VFW and how it made sense then. But like I said, that was a long time ago when we were real young. And so a lot's changed since then. But like I said, it's like August 2003 or 2023. I think my grandma died in like November timeframe 2000 or 2021. And there was some kind of craziness with that, because I'll talk about that later on. But like, the sad thing about it is I never got to know my grandfathers, and my dad is in poor health. He's been in poor health for years. He had a stroke in 2001, 2002, something like that, almost died. And then he's had another stroke, and so, and then like, you know, your mom's dad is all the way in Germany, so, and he's not that talkative of a person, but there's stuff that I was hoping for you that would be better, and I wish I could change that, but I think that's just gonna be how it's gonna be, and it's a sad thing to say, but I wish you didn't have to deal with that the way that I had to deal with it. But I just want you to know that I love you, Finn.